Tonight's episode is brought to you in part by Jenee Klub TV and Wilson's Pizza and Grill.
This from my pops, California coastlines, living out my real mind. Now it's really showtime. Now it's how I draw a line. From the fake to real, that's how it feels when you multi. But let's not forget all of the giants I want to stunt down. Scared that their positions can't be taken with a new sound.
What's happening, good people? You are in for a treat tonight. All right. I am First Things First. Don't forget the coach. Then comes Mo.
And I'm Jabrelle Jenee.
And you are here, the Evening Social Podcast. Now, I'm going to switch up some things today because we and I know you're shaking your head. I'm switching them up again. I'm switching them up because today just not no regular day. Today is, historic today. All right. So we can't forget our DJ. He's not here this week, but we got to shoot out DJ Ben Rich.
We miss you, DJ.
We do miss you, DJ. He should be back next week, though. Be back next week. So we miss him. If you don't know about him, follow him on Instagram at DJ Ben Rich. All right. I say it all the time. My DJ better than yours. If he can't find a genre or rock the party, whatever you want, I'll pay for it.
No, that's a fact.
You know what I'm saying?
Listen,
that's where it is.
If you don't know.
Okay? I'm telling you.
He's vibe.
Now, welcome. We appreciate you being here to play a part in the vibe that we have and to keep the culture with the Evening Social Podcast. Jegna is an Ethiopian Aramaic word. And part of the definition of Jegna is keeping the culture, but it's also not being afraid to speak truth to power. It's also about those who take the lead in your community as protectors, as providers, those who are willing to lay down their life for their community. Tonight's guest is a person who has dedicated his life to protecting our community. I'm going to switch up the introduction and we're going to move to something else because you may have heard of people say or call someone a living legend. But tonight, what we have on the couch is living history. He's etched his name in stone in the history books forever for those to read about the accomplishments. I got to say this. Yes, he is from Wyandotte, the Wyandotte High School. And he is from, so he's a Bulldog. And he is from Wyandotte County. All right, so Dot Boys in the house. Okay, so we appreciate that. But Kansas became a state in 1861. And at the age of only 35, our guest tonight became the first black person in the entire state's historical history of existence to become a district attorney. All right. So, we giving oxygen out the gate for this. All right. Oxygen is our term to where some people say give flowers. And we don't knock that. But we want to give oxygen. Oxygen is our way to breathe life into the people that are here to continue to do what they're doing, to know that, man, we see it. We appreciate it. We know the steps you've taken. And we want to give you oxygen to continue to be who you are. So, without further ado, I got to say a friend of mine, but he is Wyandotte County District Attorney, Mark Dupree.
Come on, DA.
Thank you.
Mr. Dupree, man, thank you so much for coming.
No, thank you for having me. The pleasure is all mine. I appreciate the opportunity, and I feel right at home. And you're right. It's never wrong when you're sitting with a dot. From the dot.
We're not going to let y'all have that today. Blind eye.
Just know that you see how the shots coming. Just know. You know what I'm saying?
I've not taken any. Don't do this.
Here we go. So I'm going to jump into a couple things. One is, if someone was to ask you, what is your profession, what would you say?
I would say it is to do my best to make sure that the community is safe. And by doing that, that means when crime is committed, it's my job, my duty and responsibility as the chief law enforcement official is to make sure that cases are filed, charges are filed, one, against the right individuals who committed the crime, and two, making sure that I follow through all the way through the court process to make sure that justice is served, whichever the outcome may be, whether that is probation, whether that's prison, or sometimes that means the individual going home. And so, but that would be the layout of what my job is.
Okay, I like that.
I love that.
I like that. So she never wants to ask this question, but
Sounds
I'm
like
a
just
fan of
rolling
black
to
love.
it.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna ask the question. You know, are you married?
Yes, I am happily married to the love of my life. She is my queen and my everything. She is my law school sweetheart.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
Come on.
she Miss Chanel, attorney Chanel Dupree.
Come on.
She is, in fact, when we was in law school, I was a year ahead of her. But when I seen her walk into the law school, I was standing in front of the school with a buddy of mine, and both of us saw her coming. Now, when you're dealing with law school, there's not a lot of people of color that are in law school. And so here we are with about 500 folk, and maybe about 10, 15 of us are black. And here comes this beautiful chocolate woman who's walking up the stairs. And me and my buddy started looking. I said, nope, I got her. And we had to play paper, rock, scissors. And I won. And so I got to introduce myself. And when I introduced myself, you know, I'm Mark Dupree. I'm student body representative. If you need anything as a new student, please just come and ask me. And I gave her.
Body representative.
Oh, but listen. I've been doing it for a long time, representing. So I gave her a made-up card. She took my card, leaned back, smiled at me, and said, "So you don't remember who I am?" I said, "Oh my goodness." Ultimately, I met her 2 years prior when I was in undergrad. She was in Oklahoma and I was at KU, and we both were a part of the Big 12 Council on Black Student Government, of which I was the president, and she was one of the delegates, and she came and met me 2 years prior.
I love
And
it.
ultimately, fate would have it.
It was meant to be.
She showed up at the same law school. Now we got 4 kids, 15 years later, and she control all my money.
As it should be. As it should be.
I love it. I love it.
Listen.
You know, we asked this question because our community, especially not just our youth, but others in the community, they need to be able to humanize sometimes those who are thriving in a professional manner, where they see in a successful point to understand that they are humans, they have families, they go home, they love, they are loved, you know, and they do father things. You know, I know you were just talking about going to your son's game.
Yeah.
They do father things. Some people never think district attorney goes to basketball games. Yeah, he goes see his kids and go. So we want to humanize that so that they understand, you know, the person side of a person.
Well, I appreciate that. I like you said, I just got back from my son's basketball game, Mark the second, and he won his game,
What
and
grade?
he's 7th grader.
Okay, so
And-
also it's big time. This
Oh,
is
it's big time. Oh yeah.
Big time.
And he was out there, and I got a 10, 11, 12, and a 13-year-old. 2 boys and 2
Those
girls.
good ages.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
ages. But they back to back, and so they be working me.
That's how you
Yeah.
want it to be.
Yeah, that's what I keep
That's how
hearing.
you listen.
I'll believe it when they grown
When
and
y'all
go.
stepping on up. Stepping
When they
on
stare
up.
step on I like it.
Love the kids.
So, Mark, what we're going to do right now is we're going to slide over into one of my favorite segments. And it's called Icebreaker, fun questions. So we're just going to kind of break the ice, have a little fun, you know, a few riddles, few things, just, you know, let you think and enjoy stuff, have some laughs, you
Yeah.
know, before we get into, you know, childhood and more things. All right?
All right, I'm with it. I'm with
All
it.
right. So, first one. If an electric train is moving north at 100 miles per hour and a wind is blowing west at 10 miles per hour, which way does the smoke go? I'm going to read it again for you.
Yeah, I need it.
If an electric train is moving north at 100 miles per hour, and a wind is blowing west at 10 miles per hour, which way does the smoke go?
West.
That was a good try. I like that. That was a good try. I like that. Now I gotta tell you this. I get my questions from my partner Bob the Bum.
Lord.
Okay.
I slide, he's moving on up because I caught him under the bridge when I was coming, and I've been telling him, I need questions, what's going on, and I told him for every stump question he get, I'll give him $5. He's been eating real good. You know what I'm saying? He's been eating real good these last.
Did I
weeks.
just help
So
me?
he just helped me. So I feel good. He just helped me. So the answer though is an electric train has no smoke.
You know what?
Now you see that.
You know what I'm saying? That don't make sense. But you don't say it, I figured.
Yeah, I know. We having fun though. We just gotta get you laughing.
I see where it is.
Well,
I see where it is.
Okay.
Wait till she asks hers.
Yeah.
Mine is
Oh, good. Let's go ahead. Your turn.
good. Okay, this one's good. This one's easy.
I'm listening.
Easy.
Okay, it is. What runs around a yard without moving?
Retro.
What runs around a yard?
See how she don't even read it for you again? You know what I'm saying?
It's a request. What runs around a yard without moving?
That is a good question. I would have to say
I'm going to say that.
home run.
No.
Yeah.
Come on, why not?
Womp womp womp. Okay. What's the answer?
It's a fence.
Okay. You know what? I'm thinking too logically
Yeah,
for these questions.
Fun question. Now, after the first two, we do let you know that you do have a lifeline that you can use.
Okay, I
You
appreciate
have
that.
2 lifelines that you can use at any time for anybody in the audience.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I will put my money on team.
Now, how is it possible for every single person to die in a plane crash, but 2 people survive? I'll read it again. How is it possible for every single person to die in a plane crash, but 2 people survived?
Because they was married.
My man. Bulldog. I knew he wasn't gonna draw a goose egg. We don't do that. We don't play like that. We do not play. We not getting blamed.
Did you see me
We
blinking,
gon'
catching
pinch.
up to it? Like,
You know what I'm
okay. Survive their spouses. I see that.
There we go.
Coach. Okay. Okay. Why is Europe like a frying pan?
Why is Europe like a frying pan? Because I have no idea what that answer is.
Well, this question turned the lights off. That's how Jenee is. You see what I'm saying? The question turned the lights off. We didn't sink in.
So the question's so dark that we don't know.
Yeah, we're going to check and make sure we all good. We still rolling, T? Okay, but we still good. I'm
I'm gonna give you the answer. This one good because it has grease at the bottom.
Oh, ain't that some geography for you?
I ain't gonna
See what
lie,
I'm saying?
my questions be cracking me up.
Yeah, that is
See what I'm
good.
saying?
You so smart.
You is kind.
Okay, number 5. What breaks but never falls? And what falls but never breaks? I'm going to read this again for you. All right?
Okay.
What breaks but never falls? 1. And what falls but never breaks, too.
I'm gonna use that lifeline.
Okay,
I think
we got
I
a
got
lifeline out
Use
there.
that lifeline.
It says
You got
some
it?
more people. It says what breaks but never falls, and what falls but never breaks.
My clean brother with the swag hat.
A resilient person.
Well, that was that was a good answer.
Now, let me tell you, because
That was a good answer, my brother.
Wait, let me see. I'm gonna try.
That was a good answer. Oh, now you want to try.
Because I feel like it's a favorite.
Now you want to try.
Is that it? That's
See,
good.
that was a Washington answer.
First of all, that's a good answer.
That's a good answer
It
for,
breaks,
for
but it
which
never
one?
falls. Falls never. It's a favor. Your favor breaks. Don't do me. It never falls. Go ahead, give it to
And
me.
the
What falls
answer
but
is
never breaks?
falls, never
Okay.
break.
All right,
The
well,
temperature.
let's get this. Oh, boy.
Oh, it
See?
drops. I guess the temperature
Yeah,
drops.
it does drop. Yep.
Go ahead.
So day breaks and night
Oh.
falls.
Oh,
You know what? You know
that's
what?
good.
Look,
breaks
I
and
didn't
night
guess
falls.
that.
He would not have either without the. You know, I'm not gonna do. We're gonna move on.
Man, how you gonna tell me what I wouldn't have guessed?
I believe in you
How
always.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
believe you always.
I'm just, your questions turning lights off and stuff, and you something.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. If 2 is company and 3 is a crowd, what is 4 and 5?
Could you read it one more time?
It's one dot.
You're right.
If
You need to know
two-
exactly what you said.
If 2 is company and 3 is a crowd, what are 4 and 5?
Too many.
I like that. No, it's a negative. It's 9.
You know what? I'm glad you're cracking yourself up.
I'm sorry. Listen,
Okay, number 7. We got about 3 more for you.
Okay,
All right, 3 more.
you
we gonna
making it
make
though.
it-
You doing good.
we gonna make it through it.
We gonna get through. Number 7. No, just come on, Bulldog. Number 7. What tastes but never smells? I'm gonna read it again. See, that's what
good one.
Wanda do. We just read the question twice
clarification.
so that people can clarify. You know what I'm saying?
That's okay.
Yeah, okay. You know, Washington stumbled through it and then don't read it again. But anyway,
Yeah, you know what?
what tastes but never smells? It tastes but never smells. You got another lifeline out there if you want to use it. What tastes but never smells?
I'll say your tongue.
Bulldog, that's what I'm talking about. That's a bulldog. See what I'm saying? He gonna bite on something.
That was good. Come on. I'm rooting for you, D.A.
I'm
Give me
presenting.
But what I'm saying, if you notice, these are questions that he can at least, gather and think and have, give
So
him
what
some
you
questions.
saying is that you lacing them for him.
Nah, what I'm saying is, could you give some questions that other people know the answers to?
Listen, bro.
It's like you making these up and
I
only
believe
you know
in
the
him.
answers.
I'm gonna give him what I feel like he can get.
Okay.
Okay. What can you put in a bucket to make it lighter? Let me do it again for clarification. What can
Good job.
what can you put in a bucket to make it lighter?
The initial thought that comes to mind is nothing. But I feel like you're looking for something.
I am.
What can you put in a bucket to make it
to
lighter?
make it lighter?
We got 2 dots together.
Well, I mean, you're getting smarter sitting in between us. So
Hey, look. I would say, because if I put paint in it, that means I can make the shade lighter.
I like that. Now, see, my mom would go to that.
You see, but I feel like it's one of those two answers. So I'm gonna stick with the paint, though it may not be the correct answer.
Listen,
Air.
I like where you went with that.
Air?
Fine, sure.
No, I'm just
You
asking.
like that ain't it. It's a hole
What can you put in a bucket to make
to make it lighter.
You
A
put
hole.
and everything that's in it comes out.
Yeah.
Wow. That okay. That's a wild count.
I'm not gonna say it makes sense, but it is good. Definitely
Listen.
good. I'm,
I for one did like the paint idea.
See that?
I like that.
Because we don't know what color.
I did.
The
That was
yeah,
good. That was
see?
creative. I would have went there.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, this is our last one.
Okay.
Question number 9. It's our last one. All right. Tell me the first thing that comes to mind when I say January 9th, 2017.
Swear again. I know that way.
Okay, now the audience is going to know why I asked that a little bit later, because that is the date you were sworn in. But there's some significant things that happened that day, not just history, but even though history was made that day, there were some ceremonial things that were greater than the history made. And so we're going to get into that a little later.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. As we move on, let's talk a little bit about childhood and growing up. So I got to ask, just for those who may have tuned in late, where were you born?
I was born and raised Kansas City, Kansas, Wyandotte County.
Okay. Wyandotte County.
Yeah, Wyandotte. Went to District 500 schools all the way through, and graduated from Wyandotte High School.
Big
Bulldog.
one, Bulldog.
Wait, what
Okay.
grade school?
I went to Vance Elementary, but Vance, they made that a different. I think it's a church now, so it's no
Okay.
longer a school. So it was a little while back,
Not sure.
But I went to Coronado Middle School.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And this is
Yeah.
Glory
Glory.
Willis now, right?
Yeah, it's Glory Willis now. Yeah, I got nephews who went there or go there now. So
Okay.
Nice. Give me something you remember from school that may have impacted you still to this day.
does it matter what level? What,
No.
high school, middle school.
Doesn't matter, but I am not talking about college. I'm talking about high school, middle school, grade school, whatever. Just something that may have impacted you, or someone who may have impacted you that still impacts you to this day.
I had I didn't have a teacher. It was Mr. Herman Davis, and he's 83 years old, and he's still alive, still kicking. And he was one of the only black male teachers that was at Wyandotte when I was there. And he was not a teacher of mine, but he was a teacher of a lot of my friends. And I was, National Honor Society, I'm making good grades. And so my teachers would let me get a pass out of my class and go to Mr. Davis' class. And this old school brother, I literally talked to him 2 weeks ago, and he talks exactly the same. He talked to you like he your daddy, and he didn't care.
Yeah.
So, and he gave me real knowledge, me and my buddies, and really told us, at the end of the day, it's not about making these teachers happy. It's about sitting down, doing my work, getting the job done, because ain't nobody gonna give you nothing if you don't get something for yourself. And so he made a great impact on my life from high school and even now.
Yeah, I love it. You play sports in high school?
Yes, I did.
So what sports did you play?
I did track. I did football, but my main sport was wrestling. It was
Wrestling.
Wrestling.
Okay.
We talking about wrestling. I mean, I had an old country coach, old white man. He wore cowboy boots, and it was something. How you got this old country white man with cowboy boots teaching a whole bunch of inner city
That's very interesting.
people of color, right? But the boy was bad. He was bad to the bone, and it taught me about accountability. It taught me about responsibility. When you're out there on a wrestling match, and when I was playing football, when I was doing all the other stuff, I could say the team messed up. I could say the team didn't do this. But when you're out there one-on-one in this wrestling match, it is literally on you. And the person who wins and walks off of that mat with their hand up is because they prepared for the match. Is because they won the match. They put in the work. And so what it taught me is that I couldn't blame anybody for losing. I couldn't blame anybody for not getting the job done. All accountability fell on me. And so it taught me to prepare. It taught me to work my butt off because at the end of the day, it's me and whoever else that I'm going against. And I'm going to be over prepared to make sure I win. And so I take that same approach with life.
What was it like growing up in your household with parents, mother, father?
It was good. I grew up with a loving family. Both my mother and father have passed on to transition to heaven, but both of them were pastors of a Pentecostal church, and so I grew up as a PK, a preacher's kid, and so I would tell folks, that P sometimes felt like for po kids because we didn't have a lot of money, and we had a lot of prayer, we had a lot of Jesus, did a lot of churching, but we didn't have a lot of money, and it was 6 of us biologically, 3 boys, 3 girls. And then my parents brought in, some of the kids and adopted kids from the church whose parents were, caught up in the streets. And so in any given time, it was 9 of us in the house that my parents were raising. And so, but what we had was a lot of love, right? What we had was parents who worked daily, who showed us. My father, he worked his job for 30 years, and at times we didn't have cars, and he would get up, I remember, in the winter and ride his bicycle from Kansas City, Kansas, change that, my brother's bicycle, all the way to Front Street over here in Kansas City, Missouri to get to work. And that showed me about really doing whatever it takes to take care of family. And my mother really made sure that we understood that you don't have to have a lot of money to make sure you take care of family, and showed us how to love each other, protect each other. You fight one, you fighting us all. One getting a whooping, everybody getting a whooping. And so that was my upbringing. And you sprinkle the church all up in it, and you just pray and push through.
Talk about the relationship with your siblings. A little bit of that, because you said it's 6 of you, but then sometimes you had an extended, siblings.
Yeah.
So talk about that, the relationship with them growing up.
Well, I'll tell you, I was the youngest of the siblings. So 3 boys, 3 girls. My parents had all these kids. My oldest sister is, I think, 14 years older than me. Okay. And my next sibling, my brother, who's a judge here in Wyandotte County, was 6 years older than me. And so story has it that, my mama and daddy was super happy. My brother had just, gotten to kindergarten, going to school full time. And then they found out they're pregnant again. And my mama was mad at my daddy for the whole 9 months because she had just got freed up from that. But with that, I had, siblings who did everything they could to look out for me, right? Mm-hmm. And so there was times where, they were experiencing stuff in life, in the streets or otherwise, and I would want to go and do stuff, and they would, be that 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th parent. And they're like, no, you can't, you chilling. No, you gonna be the church boy. No, you gonna be the college boy. And so, and to this day, all of my siblings are here in Wyandotte County. And besides the one who pastors his own church, all of them attend the church that I pastor. We are very tight family. We take care of each other like we saw our parents, do when we were growing up.
It's very interesting because I wanted to know with you growing up in District 500, right, and all of those siblings, it's interesting that you become what you are today, right? Not without hard work, but what would you attribute inside of that dynamic to pushing you to continue being that?
You know, I'll tell you, I think what really pushed me to do it within the family was my father. So seeing my father work and push and really instill in us the power of prayer and tenacity. You know, he really showed us the scripture and really believed that you can do anything through Christ, which strengthens you. But he was also a major component of, after you have the faith, you got to have the work. And so you can pray all you want, but son, I still get up and I go to work after I pray, you know. And so I remember when I decided that I wanted to become a lawyer and I wanted to do something. And in fact, I told him, I said, I want to do something to help people. And he said, well, how many people do you want to help? I said, well, I want to help as many people as I can. And we're a follower of Christ. So I want to help as many people as Christ did. How can I do that? And he said, well, you tell me. At that point, I was really thinking about going into business administration or going into law. He said, well, will your business help more people or would law help more people? And it was that analogy. I was at a basketball game for one of my brothers at that point, and we were sitting with my dad, and he said to me, which one is going to help the most amount of people? And I told him that law affects every person in the world, every animal in the world, whether we like it or not. He said, well, it sounds like you have your answer.
That's a very interesting question. I love that he posed it that way.
Man, sure.
Right?
Yeah, it's a way to think about it. You know, if you want to influence people and affect people and help people, you know, how do you help the many? You know,
Yeah.
Wow.
That's good. So that answers how you got into law.
That firmed it up for me. That firmed it up for me.
Now, when was that? In your school time, and was this in high school?
So
when was this? I
was 16. So
Okay.
I'll tell you that 15, 16, because it was at 14 when I realized that I could be a lawyer. So
Okay.
I didn't have a lawyer in my family. I didn't have any judges in my family. We had preachers, right? And I had been preaching since I was 10 years old, right? And so I knew I was going to be a preacher. That was given. We're going to pray, we're going to preach. But my father wasn't, a college graduate. My mother wasn't a college graduate. We stayed off of A Street, and part of the house didn't have heat and whatnot. So we all stayed in one area.
With the blanket over the...
With the blanket down there, yeah. So, it was what it was. And so with that, I was 14 and I remember coming to school and the teacher telling me on Monday, wear your best suit because you're going to go to downtown. And I said, well, what am I doing downtown? He said, well, you're going to shadow somebody. I said, all right. So I went home and I told my parents, they told me to wear my best suit. And hence, that was, a church boy, that was your communion suit. So I put on my black suit, my white tie, my black or white shirt, and black tie. And so I went ahead and I took that and I went on Monday to the school. And they put us on the bus. It was me and one other person. And they took the other person to City Hall on 7th Street. And they let her out. And then they took me to the courthouse. Now, the only thing I knew about the courthouse was what my mom and daddy said, which was, don't you ever get caught up at the courthouse. Don't mess with the police, and you don't mess with the court. So I'm like, oh, this ain't good. Bus driver says, you need to get off the bus. I said, no, my mama said I can't go to the courthouse. I can't go.
Mama said I can't go.
So, the deputy come out and tell me to get off. And so I get off and I go into the courthouse. And I walk into this courtroom. And there was nobody in the courtroom that looked like me. Everybody was white. Everyone had on suits. Everyone had briefcases. And I remember being extremely intimidated. And I sat on the back row of that courthouse wondering, what in the world am I doing here?
Yep.
And I then heard someone yell, "All rise. Court is now in session." The Honorable Cordell D. Meeks Jr. presiding. At that point, the next thing that happened, it shocked me so that I forgot to stand. I looked up, and this small African American dude with this mini afro is walking onto the bench. And all of these white folks are standing for him, and I'm the only one sitting now, and I'm just total shocked because I went from feeling like I don't belong here to, oh crap, whoever he is, apparently he the man. And the officer who was there hit the bench and told me, "You need to stand up." And so I stood up. And ultimately, when the court was over, the judge called me to his chambers, and I remember he turned around and he had unzipped his robe and he had a pair of jeans, flip-flop, and a t-shirt on, and he says, "Hey, I'm Judge Meeks." That was the experience that introduced me to law as a person of color. That one-day shadow experience turned into a 7-year mentor-mentee relationship, and it showed me that as a black man, I can be involved with the criminal justice system, but I don't have to be in chains. Yeah. I don't have to be a defendant. I can be the one that's sitting in the chair. And that was when I realized I wanted to do something in the law. And then ultimately, at 16, with that conversation with my father, my mind was made up.
Man. Okay.
Such a chain of events.
Sure is, and it's just amazing how, because one of the things that we want to do here with this platform is exactly what happened to you with Judge Meeks. Put in front of our community, our youth, people who look like them, that are thriving in a professional manner, so they can see and open their eyes to, oh, I can be this. I can be in that field. That is for me. And that's what it is. So that's why it's so important for us to be able to have you here. We appreciate you being here and then sharing those experiences with us.
Indeed.
We got to get into some other things as we go, because we'll sit here and talk and keep talking and don't get into a few other things. So we know you were getting into law. You wanted to be into law. 16, you're feeling like, yo, this is how I help more people. So how did that help your decision making of what you did coming out of high school?
So
and where did that play a role in where you chose to go after high school?
It did. That connection with Judge Meeks, who was a graduate of the University of Kansas, who inspired me to go to the University of Kansas and let me know that it's a good school, even though I thought it was too close to my city. And it was his experience that ultimately said, you should give this a run. And at that point, my brother was finishing up his last year there. And so that encouraged me to go on out there to KU. And so I went there for undergrad and then went on to Washburn Law School and in Topeka, which is ultimately where I got my law degree from. And I'm glad I did. We know that Washburn in Topeka was the university that had so much to do with the Brown versus Board of Education that ultimately desegregated schools across America. And so it was a lot of history that I was able to attain from that. So I would say that mentorship that I received from Judge Meeks and my brother ultimately led me to those schools.
Okay. All right, so you a bulldog and a jayhawk.
Hey, listen, you strong. You strong for the city now. Come on.
I love it. So I gotta ask a question, and I'm jumping a little bit now. You're gonna hear me jump on. So, are you happy as the district attorney? Are you happy?
I'm happy. I love what I do.
Okay.
I'm so happy because I know without a doubt that God called me to this thing, right?
Okay.
If I wasn't sure that this was a God assignment, then I don't think I would be happy, right? So after I left law school, I went and I became a law clerk for a judge over in Missouri, and then under his tutelage, I was able then to pass both Kansas bar exam and the Missouri bar exam to be a lawyer in both of them. And then I went from there to the prosecutor's office in Kansas City, Missouri. So I started out prosecuting as a prosecutor in Jackson County, Missouri. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot more people of color who are attorneys over there. And so there was a lot of connections that were being made over there. And ultimately, I went from there to Johnson County, Kansas, to be a public defender. And so I walk in there, and it's a completely, totally different environment than what I just left from.
And not even just the environment, your job, right? From being a prosecutor to then becoming a public defender is such a contrast.
It
right?
is. It is.
You have to explain a little bit about the experiences with both, because I'm interested to see how those influence how you got to be a DA,
yeah,
and the type of DA that you are today.
Well, hey, this is y'all thing. I'm just here, so you tell me when to stop talking, okay?
Go ahead. We came to hear you talk.
So
this is your platform.
Yeah.
Well,
this is your platform. We share this platform with you because we want people to be able to not only hear your story, but also hear you.
Yeah.
Hear the behind of who you are, why you made the choices and decisions, the man you are. And that you also have feelings. You also have family.
Yeah.
So that's what we want. So this is your platform.
I do have feelings.
Okay,
I have feelings. I hurt too.
Yes.
This happened, that I have feelings.
You know what? Because you seem like such a giant. So for you to share and break it down the way that you are, makes it a lot easier for the people, our platform, our audiences to digest it and for us to appreciate.
Well, and I appreciate that. So how did I, so I was a prosecutor, right? And so I'm prosecuting cases, and I'm in Missouri, and I'm doing something, but I remember, how did I get to the public defender's office? So I'm here in Jackson County, I'm prosecuting this case, and it was a crazy case. It was like old child support case. Like, it wasn't even something big. And I remember having a supervisor attorney who was an assistant prosecuting attorney, but she had been there for years. I thought she was sweet. I thought she was nice. I'm like, oh yeah, nice, African American young lady who was there, to give me some. Man, it was a whole different total feel, right? So everybody that looks like you may not be for you. And I think that is a reality that I had to learn when I got there. That office was full back in that day of really about politics. And when they seen someone else come in new, they then try to suppress you so to make sure that you don't take their spot. And so I'm coming in thinking, hey, we're about to do this thing. I remember there was a case, an African-American man who was looked like he was about 50, 55 years old, still had Jerry curl. And the supervisor, we're in front of the judge. I know Jerry Curl was on there. I remember like it was yesterday, right? And I don't know if he had Soul Glow on or not, but he was. And
I wanted to sing it, but I'm like, he's telling a serious story. Let me
Wendy, watch. So he's in the courtroom. I'm there, and I'm sitting on the front row where the lawyers sit. And the judge is on the bench, and this man is standing there with this supervising attorney, and she's really grilling him. And you see him physically getting upset, so to the point where he began to shake. Now, she's so busy, and she was a short person, but she was so busy looking at him and just going off, and the judge was letting him, that they didn't see him balling up his fist. And so I'm sitting, and I see him balling up his fist, and he began to lean back. Now,
That's
again,
her dog, no.
I'm from A Street in Wyandotte County. I know what's about to happen in court or not. And so I jump up and I ask the court, Your Honor, can we have a recess? And it threw everybody off. And the judge says, excuse me. I said, Your Honor, can we have a recess? I just need a moment. And the judge allowed me to recess the case, or rather she recessed it. We stepped into the hallway. My supervising attorney is just, doesn't know what's happening. I grabbed the defendant and said, let's talk. And I talked to him and calmed him down. And he was like, he just didn't understand what was happening. I said, man, was you about to swing on her? He said, man, I was about to knock the out of her, right? And I tell him, I said, man, then you would be here for a way worse crime. And after we finished talking, he understood. He just didn't know. And he said, well, why didn't she just explain that? I said, people work different. Went back in, handled the case, no issues, man went about his way. My supervising attorney brought me in the hallway and said to me, you are not a defense lawyer. It is not your job to help people or to explain things to people. It's your job to prosecute people. My response to her was, next time, I'll just let him swing.
Yep.
I knew at that point it was time for me to go. And I vowed that I would never be in another prosecutor's office unless I was the one who set the tone of the office. So I left to become a public defender.
Yep.
And I didn't become a prosecutor until I set the tone of the office.
I love that.
I like that.
So then once you were a public defender, how did that move you to then, work towards becoming DA?
So at that point, the focus was about helping people, one case at a time. I mean, growing up in the inner city, I knew people who went to jail. I knew people who were wrongly convicted. I had my own run-in with the law, and so I knew that the justice system was flawed.
You know what, Dupree, you weren't going to tell us that, was you?
No, listen, I always talk about it. It's common knowledge now.
I'm just kidding.
Look.
He tried to get out of here without saying it.
I mean, y'all just gonna keep on asking questions. I know. Now, I might be in trouble with my public information officer, but
go ahead.
but it was a reality, and I was in college when this happened, and I had 6 police officers flat out lie on me and gave me the whooping of my life, right? And what that showed me was that our system, not only is it flawed, the wrong people with power corrupts.
Yeah.
Right? And I knew it personally. And so when I became a public defender and I'm helping people, I was able to understand what they were going through because I had been through it.
Right.
I was able to talk to their families because someone had to talk to my family. I was able to understand that one charge can affect a person's liberty, but also their livelihood when you're talking about jobs and scholarships and grants, because criminal records literally is the #1 reason of folks not getting jobs in our country. And so when you're dealing with this as a public defender, I knew that someone had to help. And so that's where I was at. That's where I was at. That's what I was doing, and I was loving it. I left the public defender's office, and my wife had opened up her own law practice about a year or so prior, doing family law. And I went on an interview with her and did a little pillow talk.
Now, how did that interview go?
You know what I'm saying? It was tough.
I figured it was tough. Until the pillow talk.
Hey, I got the job.
You got the
job. We're going to have Mrs. Dupree on here soon.
Now, her story may be different. You know what I'm saying?
But this is your story.
Yeah, my story.
Yeah, okay.
Stick it to it.
Ultimately, I became the criminal law aspect of the firm, and I had done that for 2 or 3 years, and I specifically remember the Lord saying to me, you need to run for district attorney in Wyandotte County. And I'm going to tell you how against it I was, because I had that experience as a prosecutor, and I knew how corrupt the system was, right? And I knew my mama said stay away from police and stay away from courthouse. And now you want me to be the chief law enforcement officer? At that point, the previous DA was running for re-election. I wrote a check. I went to his campaign headquarters and I put money on his campaign so that I can avoid what the Lord said.
Cut it out.
And literally, 2 years later, I had a run-in with that office and how they mistreated a defendant and literally just railroaded them. And the Lord dropped it back in my spirit and said, if you would have done what I told you,
Yep.
this wouldn't have happened. At that point, for the next 2 years, I planned on running, and me and my wife, as my campaign director, decided to surprise the city and take it by storm.
What a surprise it was.
Indeed, it was.
We
I
gonna
remember
come,
when he ran.
we coming right back to that, but we're gonna take a minute because we cannot forget our partners.
Oh, yes.
We're gonna take a minute to recognize our partners, and then we coming right back and finish that up. Because we still got to talk about 2017 in January. I know we got to talk about that. We still got to get to that. So we cannot forget our partners. Tonight's episode is brought to you in part by Wilson's Pizza and Grill. I got to tell you something, Mr. Wilson. You know, now I ain't going to tell you. I'm going to let Mr. Dupree tell you about that veggie delight that you got over there.
That Veggie Delight was the best pizza I have ever eaten. I had to look at them and say, are you sure there is no meat on this thing? It was delicious.
Did
Man.
you get the carrot? It's carrots on the veggie pizza, y'all, and that's what make it.
Is that what it was? It was just the carrot that made it. It was delicious.
Yeah. So I had to make sure we got that out because he looked at me twice and said, man, are you sure this is veggie? I said, yes, it's veggie. Man. He took a couple more bites. He said, man, are you sure? I said, yes, I am sure. I promise you it's veggie. Yes. Okay. Also, cannot forget that Henderson Entertainment, taking KC artists to the worldwide platform. We cannot forget New Wall Street and investment education community. Agenda Klub TV now on Roku. So we can't forget that. We cannot forget our venue partner, the elegant 1739 Gallery, where they cater to all your event space needs. Our brand partnership with Brainiac 91, comfort, with a little bit of style.
Get into it.
Yeah, we love it. And then with Truth Apparel, T.
You see this?
T, get me on. Get me one time, T.
I get sick.
But I get her in the picture every time, though, Mr. Dupree. So I don't understand
In the background. In the
With the
background.
salt. With the salt every time, like.
I mean, she's in the picture. I get her in all the pictures. You know what I mean? I love you. Come on, bring it in.
Yeah.
I can't show want to bring it in.
Wait,
T, did you
okay,
get that,
wait.
T? Nope. Make sure you got that, T.
too.
Make sure you got. No, we got to go on. We're past that. We've already passed the Brainiac. Then we also got to mention Sleek Vodka,
Yeah.
Drip Ultra Pure Water,
Drip, drip.
Sweeties Teas, Heartland 180,
Yeah.
Confidence 71, Wavy by PLG. All right. You said what?
Talking to you. Go ahead.
So you interrupting again in the middle of my,
First of all,
of my can't
I didn't interrupt. I was talking to T to see if you could see the hat.
Do this all the time. I'm trying to get my, my partnership spiel in, and you just want to jump in, man.
Come on, man. Keep up. You got
Man,
notes. You ain't lost.
do you know a good lawyer? All right. So we're back now, and I want to talk about because this here we got to get this in enough time. We can't not have this in. Okay. So I asked before about January the 9th, 2017, and how what comes to mind when you first hear, and you said being sworn in. Can we talk a little bit about, first of all, we know it's historical. That day is historical. We talked about it because in the history of Kansas, like we said before, 1861 becomes a state. In the historical existence of the whole state, up until that day, they had never, not one, in the wall state. We ain't talking about just Wyandotte County. We talking about in the whole state of Kansas, there's never been a black district attorney. So the history of that day, and that's why we say we got living history on the couch. Forever that will be in the books, the history books, that's the day where marked the change where a person of color can hold those positions. Now, we know that. So before we get to the ceremony, I want to talk about what did that mean for you, or what did that feel like, what did that mean? Talk to me about how you think about that.
Well, what I thought about it then versus what I think about it now,
Right.
It's two different things. I didn't know it when I ran, right? I didn't know that I was the first or would be the first, right? It wasn't until I was about to win, and it was about 30 days before the election, and then I found out that an African American had never been elected as district attorney in the state of Kansas. At that point, it felt like a whole lot more pressure. So, the last 30 days, and I already thought, there was a lot of pressure. And I got to tell you, there was the establishment, right? The what I call the status quoers. I was told straight out not to run for DA. That one, you're not connected well enough. Nobody knows you. And if you want to become DA one day, you have to wait your turn. See, never before in history had the sitting DA been ran against. There had only been 2 previous district attorneys before me. One was the original DA who started it back in 1970, I believe 6, when it became law to be a full-time district attorney. And he was the DA for 32 years. The Congress gave him a nice plaque saying that you are the longest serving DA in the state of Kansas. And then after him, he tapped his buddy who had been in office with him for 25 years. And then he became the DA for the next 12 years. And then here comes this little African-American preacher, defense lawyer who's running for DA against him. It was a literally mind-boggling. I was literally told by someone I had never met, you need to get out this race. I had to catch myself because I didn't know this dude, and this dude didn't know me, but he was the top of the little establishment party. And I told him, if you knew who I was, you would realize that you're wasting your breath, because now I'm gonna stay in it and give it everything I got. So that last 30 days when it became known to me that I would be the first African American, all I could do was really knock on more doors, pray a lot harder, and really go. But it brought a sense of calmness to me, because Judge Cordell Meeks, who had passed away by that time, his father was the first black district judge for the state of Kansas, here in Wyandotte County.
Right.
And Judge Meeks takes his father's seat. And so here it is that the very one who exposed me to law as a black person was the son of the first black district court judge, and he then mentors the first elected black district attorney for the state of Kansas. And so the way that this thing worked out was absolutely amazing and truly a godsend.
That's why we say living history on the couch. We got living history on the couch.
I remember the upset when you ran for DA.
Man, maybe it's you. DA, we
Killing it.
Maybe it's you. We had to get a different aura in here when you get to talking. You know, whoa.
Come on and tell the truth. The story coming out either way.
Man,
Right.
Listen, I've been known to change the atmosphere every
Change
now and
atmosphere.
again.
Okay. So this history is being made. So now, how do you think about it now? You said the difference between then and then now is a difference. How you think? So now, what do you think?
It's exciting. It's exciting, and it's something that I want to make sure that everyone knows that it's possible, right? That it's possible for us to expose one another to abilities of what they can do. So last night I was able to be the keynote speaker to the first black woman district court judge elected in Wyandotte County. Guess what office she came out of? Wyandotte County DA's office, right? And so it's still possible to make history. And as she spoke, she looked at her little niece and said, I'm doing this so you can know. You can still break down these glass ceilings. And so what it means for me now, it embodies what I'm supposed to do, right? Others before me just focused on, prosecuting cases. But in this administration, my job is holistic. It's being smart on crime, but it's about preventing crime. It's about my community and encouraging and exposing and preventing crime, but letting our community know that you can be whatever you wanted to be. And I don't care if nobody has ever done it. You be the first. How do I know you can do it? Because I did, right? And this community supported me. This community got up and voted for me. This community believed in me. When you show people that you for them, they'll come out and they'll support you. And I think many politicians get it wrong because they're so focused on the job and not focused on the people. And here's the thing, when you're dealing with politics, if you allow people to put you up, them same people can take you down. But when you allow God and the community to put you up, politics can't touch you. And that's why I do what I do. But, it comes with its benefits and it comes with its sacrifice, right? I'm from Wyandotte County. I grew up in Wyandotte. I got a huge family, right? I tell people all the time, I got a diversity of examples in my family. Those who abide by the law, those who don't, those who are out of jail, those who are in. And what that shows me is that, look, people live and die by their own choices. And right is right and wrong is wrong, regardless of who you are and or who family you're a part of.
I like that. Now I'm going to take just a quick break, and then we're going to come right back.
I appreciate that.
Tonight's episode was brought to you in part by Wilson's Pizza and Grill and Jenna Klub TV. Our Facebook Live broadcast was brought to you in part by New Wall Street. Our musical guests are brought to you in part by Henderson Entertainment. Our live audience giveaways are brought to you in part by The Royals. Our venue partner is the Elegant 1739 Gallery. Our clothing partners are Truth, The Reason, and Brainiac 91. Our beverage partners are Drip Ultra Pure Water and Sweeties Teas.
Okay, so now the ceremony that's happening. I'm going to walk through a few things, and then I'm going to let you just tell me how that day was. But first, I want to walk through the fact that this ceremony not only is historic, but then it's even more extraordinary because first, who swore you in?
My brother swore me in.
Your brother swore you in. Who held the Bible that you took?
My father.
Man, and then who gave the closing prayer?
My brother. My other brother.
So, man, how extraordinary is that you just said your parents had passed, that before your father, left this earth.
Yeah.
He was a part of the ceremony to see his son, both his sons.
Yeah.
A part of a system. You doing what you said you wanted to do, help people, but making the history, and he's part of this ceremony. So you take me through that day. Can you take us through that day because I know it's full of emotions, it's full of pride. Take us through that day a little bit.
Well, it started out with, a lot of rushing, right? That was the first day. So I had won the primary in August, and then the official complete winning was the general election in November. And so at that point, everyone knew I was the DA. And usually there is a transitioning process where you would be able to go into the office, begin to learn the office, get keys and, so on and so forth. Well, I was told I wasn't allowed to come to the office. And so I had to interview people. I had to get my whole staff ready. all of this had to be done outside of the courthouse because the then DA refused to let me come onto the premises. And so January 9th was officially the first day that I was by statute going to be the DA, so they had to let me in. And so I had just walked into an office to find a hot mess. Files was in disarray, stuff was missing, stuff was tore up because he was ticked off and he pretty much set the house on fire. And so I was there in the morning, and then I had to leave there and bring all 60 of my staff over to the courtroom and be jovial. And but the moment I walked in, I was greeted with a full standing room only packed of family, of community members, of pastors, of friends, of judges, of people who actually cared. And that ceremony brought a reality to me that it doesn't matter what I walked into over there. What's going to change what I walk to in there is what I'm bringing with me. And community and family is what I'm bringing. And so to have my brother, who is the only Black district court judge right now sitting, to swear me in, and my father, who was a pastor and former military, and then my other brother, who had just retired from 20 plus years in the Marine Corps and multiple tours over in Iraq, pray and being a part of this historic moment, it meant the world. It meant the world. And it said that we are a family of service. We give, whether it is in the church, whether it's in the military, whether it's in the courthouse, whether it's on the street. Whatever we do, we give because that's what we're here to do, to help one another. And that swearing in just confirmed and validated the purpose that God has for me at this time in my life. And it was extremely, extremely monumental. And I just looked at it as we just had our, anniversary the other day, and seeing my father, looking at me, and my brother, kind of whispering, telling me not to mess up.
That's Pops. That's how Pops do.
So
they proud of you, but they don't mess it up. So.
Don't mess up.
Like, T-Money, you take them pictures, you take the thing off so the flash can come because of the door. Take the microphone.
So
yeah, because the flash won't let up all the way. Yeah, because you might still be able to get Jabrelle, but we gonna come out. We gonna come out looking a little different, And I want to make sure that my face look a little different than my shirt a little bit.
Bless your heart, Jabrelle. You have to do it daily. Oh, bless you.
I do.
So now, what are the challenges of being a district attorney?
The challenge is for this whole thing is not just about me, right? And so it's my name that's on the election ballot. It's my name that's a part of the court hearings and on TV. But I got a family, and I have a beautiful wife and 4 children, and when I do things in the community that people don't like, when they can't get to you, they try to take it out on your family. And so one of the toughest things that I've had to deal with, because I signed up for it. The Lord told me to do it, right? And so I'm used to people bad-mouthing me. I'm used to people having something crazy to say. I'm used to the very untrue reports and news articles. But when those reports and articles are about your family, your wife, your children, I had educators who were saying things to my children about their father. I had my daughter who was receiving emails from other children whose parents didn't vote for her dad, and was telling, your dad is this, that, and the other. And so that is one of the hardest things is, early on, I tried to shield my children and my wife from the daily things that I have to deal with, the murders, the rapes, the robberies, the things that I have to, the corruption that I have to deal with and prosecute. But then I seen that they're going to get it either way. And so I had to sit my family down and educate at that time my, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old kids about what their daddy is doing, and that you might have friends that don't like you anymore, and that what they say about your dad's not true, and really having to explain to them stuff that I didn't have to get explained to by my parents, right? And that I didn't have to get exposed to. Now I got exposed to it in a different way because of where I grew up, but this was, it was something different. And the fact that you have grown folks who are willing to mistreat children and come after your spouse because they disagree with you politically or with what your job is, that I think by far is the number one thing that's the toughest. I think the second thing is when I have to prosecute people and I know their family, or I know their grandma, and Wyandotte County is big, but Wyandotte County is small, and so there are times where I'm about to send somebody to prison that I went to high school with, and you're going to prison for 25 years, right? And their entire family is like, Dupree, really? Why are you doing this? And what I had to make clear to them when I took that oath, when I did that swearing in, is that I vowed to prosecute these cases according to the Constitution and without fear or favor, which means that whether you're a friend or a foe, I'm going to treat you the same way that I treat anyone else. And so sometimes that is extremely hard to watch. It's not hard to do, right? But it's hard to see that you were in the same district that I was in. You were 2 blocks over from where I'm at, but our choices ultimately put us in 2 different positions in the criminal justice system. And so that's the second hardest thing, is watching the consequences and having to implement those consequences of sometimes people that I know and in the families that I know.
Is that what makes people not like you so much? What is it that you're doing, Dupree, that is making people attack you and your family, right?
Yeah.
You've come in and you've shaken up the system.
I get that, though. I get that. But that's just magnified, because when you're an educator or a coach, and you have to make a decision on someone's child over something that happens, it's never going to be okay. It's going to always be like, well, why you do it? So I get that.
Yeah. Well,
go
that's right. That's right on point there, which is, like I said earlier, the way I was raised is, if one fight, we all fight, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't have a caveat, right? The caveat wasn't if my brother was right to start the fight, or if, they hit him first. No matter if we was wrong or we was right. If one fought, we all fought. And a lot of times with family, regardless of people being right or wrong, when they see this prosecutor sending their loved one to prison, whether or not their loved one deserves to go or not, that's their family. And everybody wants their family to be the one who gets off. Everybody wants their family to be the one that doesn't go to prison. And I took a vow. I took an oath, and that oath was to do it right in the middle of the road. And then there's other times where, there are some cases that you give it all the evidence that you have, and you still don't win the case. That victim's family, right, may be family that I know, or a family that may have voted for me, but there wasn't enough evidence for the conviction. And so now guess what? They're mad at me. Why didn't you win the case? Well, a lot of times when that adrenaline is going, I remember we had a case where there was a major crime, multiple people dead, and there were 5 people that was there. They all talked to the police. Everybody said what they saw. Well, the criminal justice system is slow. So 3 months later, when the criminal justice system gets to my office, we file the case, we're moving forward, I contact those 5 people. I'm greeted with, I don't know what you're talking about. No, I don't know what you mean. So I have to subpoena them. I have to put warrants on them. I have to put them in jail to make them say what they said. No, I still ain't talking. So I got to dismiss a case of a person who we know killed multiple people because people refuse to testify. And then, right, the family of those who were murdered are like, what do you mean you have 5 witnesses? Why didn't you da-da-da? Well, I can't throw everybody under the bus. Sorry, we just didn't have enough evidence to move forward. But the fact is, those community members was like, if that person is crazy enough to do that, I don't want them to come and get at me. And so at the end of the day, I'm the face. I'm the face of who to blame. I'm the face for the victim for them not getting justice. I'm the face for the defendant's family to say that I'm wrongly charged. I'm wrongly accused. I'm the face of the one who was wrongly accused. I'm the face that everyone sees that they can, be mad at. And so, and I get it, but I think people have to take a step back and hold people accountable for their own actions. And I think we live in a day and age where our children are not being taught that by their parents, sadly, because their parents don't believe it. And their parents are trying to get away with whatever they can get away with. And when they get caught, then they're ready to blame everybody else. So that's my answer.
Now, I got a couple more. She may have some, but I got 2 more questions. And one is in line with this one first, what you just said. Explain those challenges, what's hard about it, and then you being the face. Now, you said earlier you were happy with where you are. Mm-hmm. How do you find happiness with that? How do you find happiness with that? Because a lot of times people can't find happiness knowing that, man, all these people are thinking this about me. They're not realizing this. They're not being accountable. I'm what I'm saying, this happened with the not enough evidence, the people not, wanting to testify and that. Like, all these things are happening, but you still carry the brunt of it. You're still being the face, what you are. You're the name. You're the face of what happens, for people to blame. So how do you still find happiness in serving, doing that?
Number one is God's purpose, right? I find happiness in knowing that this is what God has for me to do. That's number one. So as a man of faith, that's number one in my life, right? There's no way I would do anything besides what I believe the Lord told me to do. And so I have complete confidence that is what he said, to be here. So that's number one. Yeah. So my happiness is in the God that put me here. That's one. But the second part is, if it wasn't me that was in this role, we've seen the corruption that occurs with this power. Mm-hmm. Because it is with this power that I am able to charge hundreds upon hundreds of people. Every case that the police investigate, before they can lock someone up, they have to get my okay to charge them. There are tons of cases that we don't charge because, one, I've been on both sides as a criminal defense lawyer and as a prosecutor, and so I understand what the evidence needs to look like. And I can say, no, that's not a good case.
But the other part is, as a black man in this country, I can say, that's purely speculation. That's purely racism. Why did you arrest him? Why did you arrest her? Right? Versus, if it wasn't me, charge, right? And the happiness comes with knowing that this authority that the Constitution gives me as the district attorney is being righteously utilized to treat black, brown, and broke folks of all races equal. When historically the law has been used to do the opposite. Jim Crow laws, right? It was the law. Lynching, it was the law. Segregation, it was the judges, the district attorneys who had to charge these cases. When black folks was lynched over 5,000 times in this country, it was the prosecutor's job to prosecute those who lynched them. How many were prosecuted? Right?
Right.
So, me in this position, I find joy and happiness in knowing that we as a people and we as a county are being treated fair and equitably versus someone else who is biased, who may be racist, or who may be ignorant and utilize this power to go with the political winds and mistreat those who are less fortunate, not politically connected, and not informed simply because they can get away with it. That's where I find my happiness.
Makes sense. It makes sense. It's the reverse of it. This is what comes with this. And when I do this and take it for this purpose, and make sure that I keep it equitable, it's going to come with this.
Bittersweet.
You know, it
The
comes
good
with
and the bad.
But all positions of authority and power come with that other side to it. There is the other side of the face. It just is.
It is.
Yeah. Now, we gotta get to the end of it. T Money's over there with his legs crossed, so I know what that means. So what are the barriers to you doing what your purpose is? And we talked about your purpose. You want to make it equitable. You want to be able to make sure that that it is used evenly, fairly.
Oh.
What's the barriers to doing that? What's the barriers of being able to carry that out and making that the office do that?
Well, I'll tell you, sometimes it's the status quo,
Okay.
right? It is the folks who have, been in this system for a long time and they don't want to see change, right? I literally just had someone tell me today, it's because it's always been done that way, right? And
That was the answer.
literally because it's always been done. And my response was, I hate that answer, right? Because just because it's always been done that way doesn't mean that it's the right way. And so, when you're dealing with the criminal justice system, you deal with people who are entrenched in it. Some people who feel like this is just the way it should be. And many of the judges that sit on our bench in Wyandotte County were former prosecutors in my office, but under the previous DA. And so with all of my changes, right, where I'm going to the schools, I'm teaching and talking to the youth, I have the conviction integrity unit.
That's what I was about to say.
Only one in the entire state, right, where we look at old cases where we have exonerated and 2 individuals have gotten out of prison, and the state of Kansas has totally exonerated them because of our work. Many of those people who are now judges said, that's not your job as a prosecutor. That's not okay for you to do because we never did it that way. But the Supreme Court said in 1939, the U.S. Supreme Court said the prosecutor's job is twofold. 1, that the guilty not go free, and 2, that the innocent not suffer. And for centuries, we have been focused on that first prong, that the guilty not go free. but not focusing on the fact that there are a lot of innocent people who have suffered at the hands of a corrupt system because they simply wanted to get a conviction and close a case.
What has it been like forming CIU? Right?
It's been tough. I mean, I had the former chief of police and the former sheriff and many unions for law enforcement came out against me openly, wrote in the paper. The old mayor came out against me, put articles in paper. We are totally against. In fact, they wrote the attorney general and said, take his power. Never seen in the history of any DA in this state and in this county. But they did all of that because they wanted to prevent me from looking at old cases and releasing innocent people, right? Or at least showing and exposing that they were innocent.
It's really mostly the exposure of the people that played a hand in getting those people wrongfully convicted. You even had some old employees that have come out and attacked the unit, right?
Yes.
What did that feel like when y'all were fighting side by side and you thought that you all were like-minded, right? And fighting for the greater good, and now even people that were close to you turning back on you.
You know, that song come to mind, Backstab. Yeah, so we got a song for everything, you know, and so that they will steal from their own mother, right? And so when you are chasing, right, we call it clout chasers out here, but in there it's they're chasing fame, they're chasing a position. And the folks who were coming out were trying to get in that political establishment so that they can be backed to run for office or to become the next judge or to get right, because these promises are made, right? Hence, it's not your turn because they had already promised, right, these folks who were going to get there. And so to see these folks, ultimately go against what is just and what's right so that they could benefit politically or financially has been something that has been repeated over and over and over in this country and in this history. And so it wasn't a surprise, but did it hurt? Absolutely. It absolutely hurt. But with that, when people show you who they are, Maya Angelou said, believe them. Yeah. And so I then realized that, everybody that was there was not there for the righteous reason, but some folks was just there to collect as much evidence as they could to go and hence that 2020 election. Yes. And they spent it real good. 2020, they spent it real good on that election, but ultimately Wyandotte County came out and voted overwhelmingly to put me back in office, and they didn't believe the foolishness. And so I stay connected to the people and not to the politics.
I think that's a testament to that upbringing, though. Understanding about the people and understanding about, hey, there's going to be a narrative spun, but if I'm in the community, if I'm visible, people can touch me, they can see me, they see the work I'm doing, the greater good will come out, and the community will understand it. Now, I do believe that, how do I say that? No, I do believe that not always does the good win. I do believe that. But I do believe that the righteousness is above all. I do believe that. So I do believe. So right now, I say this all the time. Some people are like, what? But it took me a while to get it. What's right is not always what's good. Yeah. And what's good, it's not always what's right. Yeah. And then sometimes it's hard to see that, so this is a good thing, but that's not the right thing to do. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Or it's not, what's right in this moment, or what's right for the community, or what's right. And it's hard. It takes a special person to be able to do what's right and stay on the righteous path, what's right, than just being on what the good path is. Yeah. So we commend you for that,
Thank you.
To be standing on that. Now, we got to close out. Because I know Mr. Carter, he's going to kill me if I keep you any longer. You know what I'm saying?
Look at it.
Okay, so our question, we end every show with this question. If you had the attention of the whole world, Craig, you had the attention of the whole world for 20 seconds, all right, what would you say in that 20 seconds? Now, don't tell us what you would say. T's going to count you down. He's going to point you to the camera. You look in that camera, and you give us that 20 seconds. He's going to count you down to start, and he's going to let you know when your 20 seconds is up. All right, so 20 seconds, attention of the whole world. What do you, right now, in your position and who you are, whatever, what do you use that 20 seconds for? Go ahead, T.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Micah 6:8 says that we are to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly before our Lord. Everything that we do in life, it needs to be done with a just thought process. We need to have compassion, have mercy on every person that is around us. Everybody has mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes and have flaws. Have mercy. But above all, walk humbly. Take away the pride. Understand that we are here to help one another. And when we are humble, then we can help each other. Do what you do with a humble heart and a helping mind.
Man, that might have been
Come
one
on,
of the
Dupree.
best. Okay, you get that T. Look, you had T standing over there. He wasn't even counting no more. He had Hey, one more time, Mr. Dupree, we want to give you another round of oxygen to thank you for what you're doing. We appreciate you here in our community. Continue to do what you do. Continue to fight for our community. Continue to protect our community. And please continue to make sure that our community has been done righteous. Our community has been doing what's right for the benefit of our community.
Man.
Thank you. And thank you for this opportunity. And thank you guys for what you all are doing. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
We love you.
Thank you. So, we're about to get out of here. I do got to tell you, we appreciate you all for coming out with us tonight. We love you.
We appreciate you.
And we can't wait to see you next week. You tune in to us next week. We got another guest coming next week, man. And this one is a special one too, but it's on the other spectrum. We got one of the most historic producers going to be here with us next week. We have Don Juan that is coming next week to be here.
Come on.
That is on the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, so we're on the other end of the spectrum tomorrow. Next week we got Don Juan coming. I am Coach Mo.
And I'm Jabrelle Jenee.
Together we are
Culture Keepers.
And we appreciate you. This is the Evening Social Podcast, and we're out.